on our agenda, so great. Welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Colorado Composting Council. I think we have a cool meeting set up for you all today. I think we'll just start with our usual kind of brief introduction since there's a bunch of us and we won't go too crazy, but we'll just mention who we are, what our role is, what organization we work with, and then just popcorn it to somebody else who hasn't gone yet once we get towards the end. Yes, we can do that. Assuming my computer doesn't freak out too much. Okay. Perfect. So I'm Sandy Briggs. Clinton, do you want to say something before we kick off?
No, I just put my hand up so that I like doing the hands up so we know who to pick. That's all I'm doing.
Oh, gotcha. Good plan. Okay. Well, I'll start.
Because you get lost. You don't know
exactly.
Yeah.
And going from screen to screen and back and forth and all of that for sure. So yeah, everybody put your hand up and then once you go, you can put it down and then people will know. Very good plan. I'm Sandy Briggs. I work for the City of Boulder's Climate Initiatives Department on our Circular Economy team. And I'm also one of your co-chairs for the Colorado Composting Council with my partner, Jamie Blanchard-Poling, who can go up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Blanchard-Poling. I am the founder and owner of Compost Queen PBC in Fort Collins, and we compost food and yard waste in the city. Next, I'll have Clinton.
Yeah, hi, Clinton Sander, A1 Organics. I'm marketing manager for A1, and I sit on a couple other committees here in the state and on a national level. It's all focused on composting. I will push it on over to Liz Morrow. Sorry, there's two Liz's on the call. Liz Morrow.
Thanks, Clinton. Yeah, always two Liz's here. Liz Morrow, I am the landfill manager for the city of Glenwood Springs, and we are also a commercial composting facility. I will pop it over to Megan.
We have two Megans.
Is that okay?
Megan,
You
I
got it, Megan.
I'm Megan I with an H, and I'm with Eco Products. We manufacture certified compostable packaging, and I work on end-of-life solutions. How about Megan W?
Yeah, sounds great. Megan Weeb, I work for Boulder County, working on exploring feasibility of a countywide regional compost facility. And I will pass it to Rutger.
Hello, my name's Rutger Myers. I'm the director of compost and carbon farming at EcoCycle. I'm going to be driving for about 10 minutes, then I'll be on the call. And I will pass it to, I think I saw Rachel on.
I am on. I am Rachel Setsky. I do policy at EcoCycle, and I will pass it to Joshua.
Howdy, I'm Joshua. I'm a EHS specialist at Valor Tactical and a board member of Colorado Circular Communities Enterprise, and I will pass it to Liz Chapman.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Liz Chapman, pronouns she, her, and I am the executive for a little bit longer. I'm the executive director of Recycle Colorado. And I will Megan and Faith. I'll still be involved. You haven't gotten rid of me yet. I just don't get to tell people what to do anymore. I will pass it on to Julia Lennon.
Hi all, I'm Julia Lennon. I work at We Don't Waste in Denver, Colorado, a food recovery nonprofit, and you'll get to hear more about it during our presentation. And I'll pass it on to Robbie.
Robbie, you're on mute, sorry.
I'll try that again. Robbie Tupperberg, PM Compost Operations Manager at the Auraria campus in downtown Denver. And I'll pass it to Evan.
Thanks, Robbie. My name is Evan. I have a marketing agency called Diverse, and we're focused on ecological sustainability, a lot of waste stuff, compost stuff. And I will pass it to Jessica Anderson.
Thanks, Evan. I am Jessica Anderson with A1 Organics, Science and Law. And I will pass it to Al.
Hi, I'm Al Lake. I'm on the compost management team for the compost department at Food to Power here in Colorado Springs, doing hauling and processing for the Colorado Springs city area. And I will pass it to Veronica Stone.
I'm Veronica. I'm here as like an individual, but I do work for a nonprofit called Food for Climate League, so related. But I'm an environmental social scientist by trade. I'll pass to Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Yeager. I'm a consultant in the circular economy space and personally interested in composting. And I think that's all I'm supposed to say. I'm also a Texan and an extrovert. I'll pass it to Franny.
Awesome, thanks. I'm Franny Miles. I'm an analyst with Resource Recycling Systems out of Boulder, Colorado. And we specialize in recycling and compost consulting. A lot of familiar faces on the call, which is lovely. I'll pass it to Brian Loma.
Hi, folks. Brian Loma, owner-operator of Cut the Plastic Environmental Mitigation Solutions, and under contract with Green Latinos as the hazardous materials and waste diversion advocate. And because I'm currently driving my car, can somebody self-nominate for next?
Sure, I will. This is Kimberly with Compost Colorado. Nice to see you all. We are based at the National Western Center. We have over 2,000 commercial and residential members. And I'm going to pass it to Win Common.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Wynn Kalman, and I am a consultant with Eunomia Research and Consulting, who does a lot of work around waste diversion, composting, circularity. I'm located in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I have a community compost facility, Cowgirl Compost Co. up here in Steamboat. And I'm also on the C3 Enterprise Board. So let's see, I can pass it to... Has everyone gone? I'm not seeing. Oh, no, I see more hands. I can pass it to Hayden.
Thanks, Wynn. Hayden Van Andel with the town of Breckenridge, the Sustainable Material Management Coordinator here, where we work on commercial composting programs, working with local businesses and the county at large. And I will pass it. Oh, and the chair of the Greater Colorado Council with Recycle Colorado. And I will pass it to Peter Dew.
Hi, I'm Peter Dew. I'm the owner of Series Cycle and working on some alternate residential food waste management solutions. And I will pass it to Jace.
Everybody, Jace Driver with CDPHE. I'm your friendly neighborhood regulator. Allie, is there any way you haven't gone yet?
There is a way. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Vazeski. I'm the operations coordinator with Recycle Colorado, and I use she, her pronouns. And I am making lunch, so excuse me for the camera off, but I came on to introduce myself. Naomi, go ahead and go next.
Hi, Naomi, she, her with Sustainable Resilient Longmont and Longmont Food Rescue, and I'm one of the recorders for the COCC. I'll pass it to Brandy.
Hey everybody, Brandy Moe. I handle government affairs for the state for public services. And I also am on the board of directors for Recycle Colorado. And I'm the co-chair of the policy committee for Recycle Colorado, and I'm the board liaison. My goodness. And with that, I'm on my phone, so I'm not awesome at this. I don't see anyone else's hand. Oh, sorry, Alex. Alex, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. I joined late. I assume I'm supposed to raise my hand if I haven't gone yet, so hopefully I figured it out. I like this method, by the way. Hi, everybody. Alex Schul with the Biodegradable Products Institute. Good to be here.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else come in late that didn't know the hand raising plan? Hello. Wow, what a great group. This is awesome. Thank you all for being here. It's really, I also wanted to make sure everybody's aware that we do have another recorder, Nikki Chernick. I don't think she's here today, as well as our financial liaison, Julie Mock, who is also absent today. But they're both part of your team here as well. So we're going to flip-flop things a little bit. Usually we go through all kind of our standard business first and then jump into presentations, but we will start actually today by a presentation around food rescue and recovery. And I'm not sure, Rachel, if you all were going to introduce the folks or if they're going to introduce themselves and how you guys want it to go, but I will lob it to you, Rachel, and you can kick us off on our first presentation. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. I'm actually going to say very little, and then I'm going to pass it over to Naomi. It has been my pleasure these last few months to be working with some food rescue groups on that piece of the organics diversion puzzle. And we've been looking specifically at some policies that I will talk about later as we get to the policy update. But I'm going to pass it over to our friends that do great work in this area. Naomi, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks. As I said in my intro, Naomi Curlin, I am Executive Director of Longmont Food Rescue, and I'm going to be co-presenting today with Julia Lennon here from We Don't Waste. I'm going to do a screen share and get this presentation going. Let's see. All right, is that working for everyone? Okay,
Yep.
and the purpose of this presentation is to go over what food rescue and recovery is and some of the issues that may arise in our work, and also how we could work alongside composters to reduce organic waste in our waste stream. So I'll hand things over to Julia to get us started.
Yeah, thanks so much, Naomi. So I introduced myself, but I didn't actually say my role. So I'm the Senior Programs Manager here at We Don't Waste, and I focus on education and advocacy. And so this kind of falls under both, but excited to be here to share with you all a bit more about food recovery, food rescue. Some of you might already be very familiar with it, and for some, this might be a newer concept. So just kind of starting with the basics, defining food recovery or food rescue. So it's collecting food that would have otherwise been wasted and redirecting it for human consumption. So at We Don't Waste, our vision is that food goes to people and not to landfills, and is accessible to all. It's as simple as that. Recovering and rescuing this food represents a really important opportunity to make sure people have access to food, improving food security, and also keeping food out of the landfill, reducing that waste. It's important, as all of you know, to keep food out of landfills, to keep those harmful greenhouse gases out of our atmosphere, protecting our planet. And then we also want to protect our people. 15% of Coloradans experience food insecurity. That's a lot of people that don't have enough food to eat. And so we do our best to recover this surplus food that for many different reasons was not going to be sold, and distribute it to feeding people through direct distribution to people experiencing food insecurity, and also to nonprofit partners like food pantries and food banks that distribute food. So who can recover this food? Many nonprofit organizations, like We Don't Waste, for example, recover food all around Colorado. And I have a bunch listed here. And actually on the next slide, I have a map of kind of like the general regions and areas that these nonprofits work. So Vindicate Foods, for example, is a food recovery organization in Fort Collins, Longmont Food Rescues in Longmont, Cafe Food Rescues in Summit County, Food to Power is in Colorado Springs, Boulder Food Rescues in Boulder, Denver Food Rescues in Denver, as is Kaizen Food Rescue, and We Don't Waste is based out of Denver, but our reach is around the greater Denver area. And so we all operate to recover surplus food and distribute that food to people. There's also tons of other food pantries, faith-based organizations that will recover food as well. So If you don't have a food recovery organization close by to where you're operating, you could reach out to local food pantries and they would likely take some surplus recovered food. Go to the next slide. So we have a bit about food recovery apps. So there's lots of technologies that are helpful in coordinating logistics when it comes to food recovery. And then kind of talking about how local food recovery and food rescue organizations can utilize these technologies to help with our programming, but also just making it clear that it's really important that there's people that are operating these logistics as well. So for example, We Don't Waste, we've been operating for 16 years, and it's pretty much always been us communicating with our food donors and then us communicating with the nonprofits that we're bringing the food to. But recently we did start utilizing a technology called We Rescue, an app to help us recover smaller food from smaller donors. And so there's definitely a role for technology in food recovery, but just making it clear that the connection between the people and the food is really important, and kind of cutting people out and just using technology could sometimes lead to some issues. Technology is not always perfect, and there could be some complications, but there certainly are great ways to use technology. Like restaurants can utilize a technology like Too Good To Go to sell their surplus food at a discounted price. I know I have tons of friends that utilize that and really love getting, the extra slices of pizza from a pizzeria at the end of the day or surplus baked goods. But just making sure that there's respectful and effective distribution, and that it's pretty much always best to go with like your local food recovery org, because of the human capacity of it all, of developing that community and those relationships. I know that's definitely what has made We Don't Waste successful over the years, is building those relationships person to person. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Naomi, otherwise we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think that anyone who has worked in food recovery has experienced just the importance and the value of having those relationships, and also the relationships with your volunteers, the folks who are actually picking up the food donations and delivering them. And one of the potential risks of apps without that sort of oversight and without that sort of coordination is there can be lack of volunteer training, oversight, and also their connection and familiarity with the recipient sites, knowing their operating procedures, opening hours, all that sort of things. And sometimes the technology that can be utilized doesn't provide that sort of training or information for the volunteers, and they can sometimes feel underinformed, or just not really knowing how to effectively do a volunteer shift. And so using the apps as a tool, but first seeking those relationships with the food agencies that are in your area. If you have food nonprofits like ours, that's always preferred, so that we can really work with the volunteers alongside the recipient sites.
Yeah, agreed. And this kind of just furthers that. So in addition to like the volunteer relationship building and making sure they feel comfortable, also the knowledge that local food rescue orgs know about the desires and needs of the individuals they're bringing the food to, and also the nonprofit partners that they're bringing the food to, is so valuable. I know we work with over 100 nonprofits distributing this surplus food, this rescued food, and some only want shelf-stable products. Others really want fresh produce. And so we know personally their needs or their wants, whereas a technology could be really helpful with the logistics aspect, but might be lacking in that like human needs aspect. But yeah, local food rescue organizations, really important for that relationship building, decision making, and then training personnel like staff and volunteers. Logistics can be really helpful with technologies, can help analyze data. I mean, we certainly use tons of technology to help us with our data storage or inventory, and it could help inform volunteers of where a food pickup needs to happen. And together, it can be very effective and respectful in the way that we're recovering and then distributing this rescued food. And I'll pass it over to you, Naomi.
Yeah, and I think that this topic of apps came up recently in COCC meetings. There had been a lot of excitement at some conferences around the technology. And so we just wanted to highlight some of how it can work really well in collaboration with food rescues, and also just to be aware of potential pitfalls to using apps without that human element. So just wanted to highlight that with this presentation. And then I want to really dive into something that's been going on in Longmont. I'm Longmont Food Rescue and Sustainable Resilient Longmont, so very Longmont local. We have a universal recycling ordinance that was passed in 2023. And this is a really great example of how policy can show great collaboration between composters, waste diverters, and food rescue, and how we can co-create policy that really identifies how to best divert organics and work together in collaboration. So what Longmont did is they have this universal recycling ordinance. The first year of rollout in 2024 was all around recycling, getting all of the commercial entities and multifamily units to be up to date with recycling and having that provided at all sites. And then this year, 2025, is the rollout for organics. And so at the beginning of the year, organics collection was becoming required for all large scale wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, and grocery stores. And then on June 1st, we're going to start rolling out the smaller scale organics collection requirements for any of these listed businesses, restaurants, caterers, food trucks, food shelves, food banks, hotels, all of this, any sort of facility that might have a majority of organics waste. And the last component for that will come in 2029 with landscaping companies. So that is pushed off a little bit because there are some logistical concerns with how to coordinate with landscaping companies, but we know that a large part of organics waste is coming from landscaping. Obviously, yard waste is a big part of the residential part, and so landscaping companies for the commercial sector is going to be key in 2029. But there's a lot that is going to be captured in the coming years with this new ordinance. And something that Longmont decided to do when crafting this ordinance was in the qualifying exemptions for organics. So if you are a business that is going to fall under this policy and want to apply for an exemption to composting, one of the exemptions to apply for is if majority of your food waste is being donated for food. And so this is just a way to say, instead of taking straight to composting food that could be used for human consumption, let's go a little bit higher up in the food rescue recovery hierarchy and say, can it be used for human consumption first? And I think it's just forward thinking of this policy to see that this could be captured for food rescue organizations like ours, for other nonprofits and food pantries. And then if there's significant compostable waste that isn't captured by this, then obviously they would continue to fall under that composting ordinance. And then another type of exemption is if they do on-site composting. So if you have like a backyard compost pile on your business and that you're doing it on-site, that is another type of exemption that is specific to the organics policy. And I just wanted to call this out and highlight it because the Boulder universal recycling ordinance that they passed a few years back actually didn't have food donation as a highlighted exemption for organics. And so I really commend Longmont for seeing that as an opportunity and adding it in, even though I think they used a lot of what Boulder had done before as a model. So it just made me excited to see policy that brings our types of work together. I'm passionate about both composting and food waste. And I think we're going to open up here for some questions. And also, we know that this is going to be a topic at the summit this year with a panel. And so to see if there are things that the folks on this call would like to see expanded on, and really what we can build out for that panel next month. Yeah, Brian.
Hi, so excited to see this, and I'm actually over here looking up your ordinance right now. Many people don't know I'm also the co-director of the Waste No More Denver ballot measure, which still has not been enforced, and I'm curious about your exemptions. Who
how do you decide who doesn't have to divert?
I can send over to you the list of exemptions, and that part of the it's actually on the website right now for City of Longmont. There's a whole section of how to apply for exemptions. And it's things like if you can show that you're already composting in some way without using the commercial haulers, if you show you're donating food, as I mentioned. And then there are some exemptions for smaller businesses that it might be a financial burden, and then like having a plan for how to build it out in a few years to come into compliance. So there are some things that are like waivers or financial incentives to help with that piece.
Okay, I appreciate that. And it sounds like you really answered my question, that it's a temporary exemption that
it gets reviewed and it does get reassessed. So it is like a case by case. I know that the city sustainability office is the one that's overseeing it. There's a zero waste lead at the city sustainability office that is going to be working to review them. And then if there was violations or things that were like, you're not exempt and now you're in violation, then there's a process to try to work through so that they're up to code before you start getting any sort of penalties or fines around it. From what I can tell, the city is just really trying to get everyone on board to start and get everyone excited about composting. And so how can we help the businesses come in compliance is the first step. And then if it becomes an issue of working through the exemptions or working through any sort of penalties, that it would be a process where they're working one-on-one with those businesses.
Thank you.
Looks like Sean has her hand up.
Hi. Sorry, I can't turn on my video. I'm driving as well, but this is Sean Bruckman. That's awesome. I love this. I love the collaboration between composting and food rescue, and I'm super excited. That was a nice presentation. My question is, for We Don't Waste, what's your region? Where do you serve? And also, are any of you going to be at the ReFed conference in Seattle at the end of June?
Yes, I'll be at ReFed. I'm so excited. I went last year as well, and it was awesome. So looking forward to it. I've never been to Seattle, so I'm excited. And then We Don't Waste, our office where I am right now, our warehouse distribution center is based in Northeast Park Hill in Denver. But we operate in the greater Denver area. We say that because, we're kind of flexible, but within like an hour reach generally. So we do operate in Boulder, we'll pick up and drop off up in Boulder, and I actually manage our education team, and we do some work in Evergreen. So it's generally within an hour, but we make exceptions as well. We have picked up at farms that are a little further than that if the amount of food is worth the energy and the time and the truck and the gas to get out there. So we're somewhat flexible and kind of growing and expanding. We have 5 refrigerated trucks and a staff of 27 people now. But yeah, greater Denver area is what we say.
That's cool. Thank you so much. I will be at ReFed too, so I will try to send you an email.
Yeah, I would love to connect with you there.
Yeah, there's not always a ton of compost representation. It seems like I was there last year too, so it seems like it's getting more. And so that's something that I'll talk to the rest of the COCC group about maybe at our summit too, to see if there's any particular needs that we have for being a part of this conversation on a national level. But thank you so much. That was really cool, you guys. And also I want to share that I like having these presentations at the beginning of the meeting. It's really nice to kind of jump in with some really cool stories.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback, Sean. I agree. And thank you, Julia and Naomi, for sharing all this really important work. It's my own question is, I just, you talk about your reach and how many different organizations are doing work everywhere. I just wonder kind of how much crossover there is, or how much coordination there is between some other organizations. You see come to Boulder sometimes, but of course Boulder Food Rescue is pretty established here. And what kind of collaborations that you either have or might hope to have with organizations that you cross paths with?
Well, we have a really cool network of food organizations. So we have a group called the Food Rescue Alliance that was started by Boulder Food Rescue, and it is what it sounds like, an alliance of food rescues that is actually nationwide. A lot of us are in Colorado, but it spans food rescues from all over the country. And there's also the Food Security Network, which is Boulder and Broomfield counties. And so at both of those collaborative monthly meetings, we really well, there's monthly meetings, and then there's also all sorts of additional workshops and opportunities for collaboration within subcommittees, breakout sessions. So it is really interconnected. So I feel like we've done a great job of networking. Julia, do you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, we're super excited to be part of the Food Rescue Alliance, and we certainly don't want to step on any toes for like Boulder Food Rescue, and we're not doing much recovery there, but sometimes we do some distribution, or like if we have a lot of surplus food, we could bring it to Community Food Share, which is like the bigger food bank in the region. Because not all small food pantries could always take like 10 pallets of berries that we receive from a trucker or something like that. But yeah, it's great to have a collaborative relationship with all of these food rescue organizations. Like Denver Food Rescue, for example, does come and pick up from We Don't Waste on an occasional basis if they have one of their like pop-up like free grocery events and they don't have enough for that event, they can come and get some food from our warehouse. So we certainly work together. Looks like Rachel has a question as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Mine's less of a question and more of just I wanted to really underscore that we are excited to have this little 10-minute slot to present today. And I hope that most, if not all of you, are going to be at the summit. We're going to get to go more in depth. Sandy, your question was perfect. Diane from Cafe Food Rescue, who's on the call right now, and Rita, who's from Uproot, and I are going to be presenting, and really want to think about how can we work in partnership with food rescues, with organizations like Recycle Colorado, EcoCycle, with composters. How can we all work together to move the needle? So please be thinking of questions and bring them to the summit, and we'll see you there. I didn't mean to jump in front of anyone if they had more questions today, but just wanted to say that.
No, that's fantastic. And I really just wanted to underscore Sean's point too about all the connections between food rescue and composting, and how it really just, they're all in the same family, and they all function for their own reasons, for their own needs and their own purposes. And it's just such a good synergy. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your work with us. We are going to delve forward though into our next one, assuming everybody's done with questions. I don't see any hands up, so jump in now or thanks again for being here, Julia. And
if I can just say, if anyone has any topics that arise in their head that they want to email us about or drop in the chat for us to bring into the summit panel, please just drop them in the chat for us.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's take a little bit of a shift, and I would like to introduce the group to a couple of our newer members, Christine Yeager and Veronica Champine, who are going to share with us a little project that they have taken on to help the COCC with. So ladies, take it away.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you. So I think on this call last time, the topic came up around membership and how to sort of get new members. So Veronica and I met, and we're going to walk you through a couple of slides, and we have a little few questions for discussion. So this is meant to be interactive, so feel free to come off mute and raise your hand. But I will share my screen if this works. Can y'all see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to talk through a little bit of the scope that we think that this work would include, and are looking for feedback on that if there's anything we think that we're missing. We think that starting with what is the value proposition of being a member for the Compost Council is a good place to start in sort of grounding the messaging and the next steps. And then we have some discussion questions as well. Veronica, I don't know if you want to chime in at all as well before I move on.
Nope, just that I'm here. And
Okay.
We're excited to share.
And we put this together. So just calling that out. So the problem statement is that the Composting Council in Colorado would like to encourage more members and potentially sponsorship. We have access to some contact lists, but we don't have content ready and available to use to outreach to those contacts. In addition, the team has identified areas of opportunity for the website in general. So the proposed scope of this work is to start with what is a value proposition for membership, and then from there provide recommendations around what website updates might look like. And our initial thoughts would include onboarding materials, potentially some policy basics related to composting. I know there's a membership PDF, but just some more clarity around what the membership means and how it interacts with Recycle Colorado in general. And then we wanted to talk about and propose potentially a joint membership option where you sort of join and you get Recycle Colorado and Composting Council together. And then once we kind of align on those updates, then we would have a bit of an email campaign using the distribution list that we have, and then also starting to look into sponsorship opportunities. So that's the proposed scope of what Veronica and I are planning to work on over the next few months. And we had a couple discussion questions we wanted to share, and then next we'll talk about the value proposition. So I guess I have discussion also at the end. There's 2 discussion points, but anyway. Does the general group think there's value in companies who are impacted by composting regulation, like what Longmont just talked about or Brian Loma just talked about? Is it helpful for them to join this composting council to learn how or tips for compliance in that area? Is that something that makes sense for this group, or is that totally outside of the scope of being a part of composting council?
I think in general, Christine, that really any of this sort of thing is free game for being part of the composting council. We want to be as value add as we can, and to be the resource and be the knowledgeable people in composting, but also we have a lot of members who aren't composters. So I think that we can probably address a lot of these different angles. So I think that the short answer is yes. And, if we don't have the answer as a council, we always have Jace and others that are the actual regulators that can help very specifically with compliance too. So.
Sean, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I agree with Sandy. We want to do it all, but I would say as of right now, we probably don't have very much resources for people who are other than that we can connect with regulators, or we can kind of make the connections. That's a valuable thing that we can do, but we don't have kind of like guidance or guides for people who are dealing with compost ordinances. But we could, and we should, and we'd like to, but that gets into capacity, which also gets into membership. So if we, expand our membership and that's what the members are asking for, then potentially there's more support to be able to provide those types of resources. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. There's lots of people that apparently do have resources, but it's not branded as the Compost Council.
Okay, but it could be that you could create a bit of a resource center, if you will, on the website that links to other people's resources. Clinton?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention. I mean, the COCC is a branch of the USCC, and there's a lot of resources at the United States Composting Council level that can be utilized here in Colorado and can be resources for people in Colorado and manufacturers and everybody in there. So being able to bring that over to you, the website, and having clear ways to find that information, I think would be really beneficial. So this is great.
And on that note, is there any other suggestions that people have been thinking about in their experiences with the website or membership outreach that they've had on their mind that we should consider as part of this scope?
I had a thought about recently, and it'll come up in our agenda a little bit later, actually, but I've been thinking a lot about a more robust event calendar where we can post things like upcoming webinars, or we can post a meeting schedule, or we can post our members events that are coming up in different places around the state. Just again, I think it comes back to Sean's good point about we have a lot of these things that we've always wanted to do, but we've just had not much capacity and not much enough members to be able to take it on to actually manage something like that and keep it updated and get all the information that we need to populate such a calendar as well. And I think we have, I feel like Allie's going to say something really pertinent about this, so I'll shut up for a second.
Allie?
Yeah, so on the website, we are definitely going to make some changes just after the summit and after this new ED transition. So please be patient. Clinton kind of knows a little bit on it. But we're exploring a different platform because the current one just does not offer all the things that you're wanting, which is exactly what I also want. I just don't or haven't had the time to kind of like do it on our current website, but there's solutions that do offer that, and it's all completely built in and makes it like so much easier and so much more time saving. So as you're saying that there's not enough people or time to do all of that, this new platform would definitely help with that. So it's something we're exploring. Just give me a little bit of time after the summit, and we will definitely get that incorporated and get something for COCC as well.
That's helpful. And we can focus on the content itself and then hopefully can be ready.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful because they'll build us a couple pages, they said, but we need to build out the rest of them. And so if we want to do like some totally new content changes and get new things on there, this is definitely the time to do that. So that'd be perfect.
That sounds amazing. I'm really excited to hear that, Allie. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up. And yes, I feel like we'll be able to do a lot more.
Yeah. We do have a couple more slides. Is there any other commentary on this page? Okay, so we did some brainstorming on our side, Veronica and I, on what the value proposition could be for the Composting Council. So this is just food for thought, but then in a second, I think Veronica's going to drop a link into the chat. Veronica, you said there's a QR code. I couldn't figure out how to find it. So if you can send the link to everybody, there's a 2-question survey just to get a little bit of feedback from everybody here on why they're members of the Composting Council. And then we can use that. And while y'all are doing that, I'll just talk a little bit. We thought about it because Allie and I, this is not we are not composters by profession. We are personally interested in this. So we thought about it. We tried to think about it from our perspective and then also from if this was your career, that perspective as well. It is tangentially tied to both of our careers as well. But anyway, this is how we were thinking about it. When I put the mission up here just for context for everybody, but there's personal interest in composting and the fact that people want it to be successful in a more scalable way. So that's a benefit of being part of the council, is being involved in that. There's also a benefit of expanding your network with credible subject matter experts in the composting space, if that's of interest. There's also just being with like-minded individuals in the industry and a space for collaboration towards a common goal. And then interest in getting involved in your local community in the service of expanding access to commercial composting. So these were kind of the highlights that we thought of, but I'm gonna switch over to hopefully the poll. And what we're hoping is that we can actually use the insights from this, but also potentially we wanted to talk about the idea of sending a poll to people. It wouldn't be these exact questions because the scope would be different, but sending a poll to those that are Recycle Colorado members that are not a part of the Composting Council and sort of asking why not, if people are interested in this. But we wanted to start with like, why are our members in the first place?
And if
Did
you
I
do
hear somebody coming off? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, thank you. This is updating as we're looking at it. So we're seeing the live results here. And if you do have an other, feel free to write that in the chat and I'll note it down too. Because obviously we're new and we're not as in it as other composters. So feel free to give us that feedback as well. If there's something we're missing here.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like community impact is at the top. And then education in general around composting, which is that's interesting and helpful to see, because one of the things that Veronica and I talked about is this idea of almost like onboarding content of like, why isn't composting already scaled? But you know, like what are the barriers, and the same idea of like what are the barriers from a political landscape as well standpoint. And then yeah, and then you can just also answer this other question in one word or phrase why you're a COCC member, and then we'll use your responses as input into like a more crafted value proposition. Any like thoughts or like reactions to the data here? Y'all can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anything surprising? Okay.
And we are starting to get some word cloud starting on the second one if we want to go to that.
All right. Cool. See, fancy. Yeah, community. That's great. All right. So I know there's other topics on the agenda, so I'm going to click back, but thank you. And then just a few other questions for the team. Is there any issues with sending a survey? It wouldn't be exactly this. Like I said, it would be more trying to understand why people are not composting council members. And maybe why they might want to join. There might even be like a link that says, here's how you join, just to try to just start with our own house, if you will. Any like concerns about that? Have you done that already? That's, I mean, first question.
I'd say we haven't done that. And I think after the summit, we can definitely talk about a way to get that out to our members, definitely.
And I'd like to also suggest, sorry to jump over a couple folks real quick, that we do the same thing maybe with our USCC members that are in Colorado that are not Colorado Composting Council members.
Well, so we were thinking that was probably just a they don't know about you problem. So we were thinking we would send a dedicated email and message to that audience directly once we've done a little bit of this value proposition exercise and some website updates.
Okay, sure. So Peter?
Yeah, and I lost everybody's Zoom, and Now I'm afraid to get out, so I can't see your hands raised anymore.
Oh,
So
I
yes,
can help
jump
with
in.
that, but
Thanks.
Yeah. I was wondering if you had any information on the percent of companies or organizations that are composting within industries. For example, what percent of restaurants and hospitality participate, agriculture, contractors who do site work, how much site waste is composted. Resident the area where I'm kind of focused, residential food waste. What percentage of people participate in some sort of composting program or compost at home? I mean, I think if you could break it down and we could see where the big gaps are, you could focus a little bit on where the
Yeah.
impact might be.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's tied to that second bullet. I totally agree. It's like, how do we find who is interested in participating, and then that would be the ripe audience that might want to participate in the council. And the same thing that with the question around the businesses who are impacted by the ordinance, like there might be companies or businesses that are further ahead. And so those ones might be interested in being sponsors to sort of showcase how green they already are. And then separately, you might get more membership from people who are trying to figure out how to comply. But I don't know if that data exists.
I feel like there might be, and I might be totally off on this because that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to it either, but I feel there might be some statewide data somewhere along those lines. Maybe I'm completely off. Maybe Jace has a thought on that. Not sure. I really don't know. If anybody has any thoughts, but please share with Christine. And Jamie's had her hand up for a little bit, so.
I think that a good question to ask Recycle Colorado members who aren't Compost Council members is, what would make you be a compost member? Because I think that not only like, why are you not, it's like, but what would? And I think that would be a telltale, that would just be some good data to get to focus our reach.
Yeah, it's a great ad. It's always better to be positive.
This is Peter again. I was just thinking, my background is actually in architecture, and we got very involved in all of this, green building certification stuff. And so I'm trying to think what is the benefit of being a member or participating, or, and if I dare say it, if there was some sort of certification that was, for example, if I'm sort of thinking in my architecture community again, for multifamily developers, if they could get, X% of residents in their buildings to compost, that, they would be certified as X, Y, or Z. Or if you had hospitality who was composting at X%, that they would get some sort of certification. I'm not sure it would work in this context, but I mean, people like having these kind of recognitions, and I'm just trying to think of what is the recognition for being a member and of participating in composting efforts.
So I'm trying to get that.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
No, you go.
I was just going to say that it's a good idea for sure. And we've had some minimal success with that sort of thing on the local level here in Boulder. I don't know how something like that would work on a more statewide level. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more localized because the rules are a little bit different everywhere you go, right? So you have to make sure that that people that are participating in fruitful composting are not only, compliant with local rules on it, but also getting local recognition for it too. So,
but I wonder if there's a broader play instead of just composting, but it's like, how does composting help you achieve some other certification that exists that would be bolstered up by your participation? What I'm thinking about this is like greenhouse gas emissions or B certification, or like trying to help people understand the role that doing this activity plays in a broader sustainability agenda, if that is something that's important to your business or personally,
Does anyone have any other thoughts? I did want to jump back to your question around, who's doing what and where kind of questions, which Clinton very rightly put a link into the organics management plan, which I think has some of that data in it. So I would definitely take a look at that. It's a massive document. It's got a lot of awesome information in it. And Robbie's got his hand up, and we're probably gonna need to move on pretty soon too, but go ahead, Robbie, and we'll see if anybody else has any other comments after that.
Yeah, I was curious if the state of recycling and composting in Colorado might have some of that data from that EcoCycle puts out.
Good call.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you, Liz. She's on it already.
I would say as the lead author of the state of recycling, we definitely have information that we glean from communities, but we also rely on the data that Jace puts out every year. So it's in there, and definitely the organics management plan would be a good place also.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. If anybody wants to also be a part of the marketing strategy team here, we're also open to get more members. So just throwing that out there too.
Got to do it. Thanks for doing it for sure. And thank you both for, joining up and trying to help for the betterment and reach of the whole COCC here. So that's great.
Yeah. And one logistical question is like, is there an expected timeline for things that need to happen, like that we should be working against?
I will ask my co-chair Jamie about that too, but I don't think so exactly. I mean, it's a project that we've been hoping to work on for a while, and there are some small kind of deadlines with the United States Composting Council about when we have our kind of membership numbers up to a certain point and how much money we get back from them each year. So, and that typically happens in the fall, I think. So I don't think you're on like a, 4-month deadline or anything like that. But it would be good to, to have just a plan that we can talk about maybe by third quarter, or when we get around to our next elections, which we'll probably start doing in November for the next term. So.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. Briefly
I have a question around timeline for the website updates that Allie was talking about making earlier. When would be the deadline for submitting content for that?
Give me until after the summit, and then I'll let you know.
Okay, after the summit. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So I think, speaking of the summit, thank you for that segue, that we'll briefly just, I listed them all in the agenda already, what all the different summit sessions are on the 3 days or on the 2 days of the summit. And I wanted to invite the folks that are, that are presenting those topics to say something if they want, or not, either way. But I really just wanted to list them out. This is what we're going to be doing for our organics track up at the summit, which is going to be the first part of June, for those of you that don't know, or maybe not going. Does anyone who's doing these presentations want to say anything to the group? Share some information? I
Hey,
knew you would.
yes. Give me an opportunity to talk. Heck yeah, I'm in. No. Jamie, I see you laughing. Love it. So Clinton Center, A1 Organics. Oh gosh, I'm pulling the EPR stuff, Liz. So yeah, Rutger from EcoCycle, we are going to be diving into organic matter, which is in this wonderful product called compost that we create here. And we're pretty excited. We're going to dive into the benefits and how it's associated here right in Colorado with water retention and actually provide some real life examples of cities, municipalities, homeowners, agricultural farmers benefiting from that exact thing, organic matter in the soil. So we're excited. Please come join us. Yeah.
Cool. Sean, please jump in.
Sorry. Yeah, also wanted to just mention that we have a wonderful flyer that Allie created that if anybody wants to share that just highlights the compost sessions that we could pass around, and also one that's specific to the on-farm compost demonstration that we're going to be doing on the last day on Wednesday that Rutger and I are also doing. He's a hot speaker this year. And so we will, maybe I can get that over to, who should I say, Sandy or Allie? Allie, do you want me to send you the final edits and then we can send it out to everybody from this meeting to make sure that we can distribute all of that stuff too?
Yeah, if you guys have any like final communication things, that would be helpful for me to have. And then just let me know like who you wanted to get sent to and like what language and everything. That's super helpful because I know we had quite a few groups that we wanted to invite to that egg hour kind of thing.
Cool. Thanks, Allie. I'll send you an email either this evening or early tomorrow morning to follow up with that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
So I already got to talk about the session that I'm working on with the food waste reduction. I had a question though. Allie is awesome and she put together some social media for sharing, and I noticed that the COCC logo was on our session. I'm totally cool with it there, but if y'all didn't want it on the food waste reduction and the food donation, I just wanted to check with folks here. Is that okay?
I'm okay with it. I don't think it's a problem. Do you, Jamie?
I'm okay. Yeah, I think that just like we were talking about earlier, how food rescue and composting kind of go together anyway.
Yeah,
cool.
Totally. Thanks for asking, Rachel. Alex?
Yeah, I'm excited to be hosting a panel with Megan from Eco Products and Brian Loma and Julie Mock with Elements Compost and Melik from CDPHE, some real experts from across the compost product supply chain. Purpose of this session is to, I guess, look forward in a way. Colorado's in a unusual, but in a good way, position of having passed EPR and labeling, and obviously there's still a lot of work to do to get these programs out and with implementation and enforcement. But also, I think it allows us an opportunity to really look ahead, but doing so through the lenses of all these different experts. So if that sounds interesting, we'd love your feedback and questions at that session as well.
Great. All kinds of good stuff. Robbie, what you got for us?
Yeah, I will be doing like a rapid fire session with a couple other speakers, just like 15 minutes, just kind of giving an update on how our in-vessel unit is operating. I kind of left everybody with a little cliffhanger last year. And so now that I have a little bit more data and information about it, I'm happy to share like where we're at this point. So that's what I'll be talking about.
I am super curious about that. That was a bit of a cliffhanger. And I've been working quite a lot with Chris Herr at camp at CU lately too. So interesting, cool. All right, so lots of good stuff happened at the summit. We hope to see a bunch of you there. If anybody else has anything else to say about summit right now, I don't know if I think registration is probably closed by now. So if you haven't registered yet, no. All right, Liz, Allie, let's hopefully get some more registrants. No, all right.
You last people.
Sorry.
So please register all you last. Sorry, I'm in my basement trying to get all the summit stuff together, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks.
Very cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to launch into kind of some of our basic business, and pretty much from 7 down to the bottom of our agenda are all just kind of standard updates that we do. If we have them, we don't. If we don't have them, but I'm just going to kind of rapid fire going through them. I know that Clinton is our representative on a lot of these things that may or may not have any updates, so we're not requiring him to like write us a report every time. But let's just see, first of all, Clinton, if you have anything to share as our board liaison to Recycle Colorado.
Well, I know Liz Chapman could speak to this as well, but the biggest thing is, yes, we have Recycle Colorado Summit coming up here at the end of the month or the beginning of next month. And that's big. And there was some policy. Well, do you guys are going to touch on policy?
Yeah, we have some policy
good.
topics
I'll stay
coming
away
up
from
for
that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So biggest thing is, hey, if you can attend the conference, the summit, come on down and support the Recycle Colorado and the organics track as well.
Right on. Thanks, Clinton. So Clinton's also on the policy committee with Julie, who's not here, and Megan with the H and the I. And this is specifically related to the RC policy committee. So I don't know if there's anything to share along those lines from any of you, other than the other policy topics we're going to get to here shortly. Okay, I'm going to say no. Yep. Thanks, Megan. Okay. Let's see, what do we have? Financial liaison update. That's Julie, who is not with us. She has provided a written update into the notes here. I can just read it out loud really quick. She says that she's sorry she can't attend today. Financial accounts have been reconciled through Q1 of 2025, and the reports are uploaded into our Google Drive financial folder. The COCC has $25,043.29 in the bank, and will be ahead on membership revenue by about $400 after the USCC membership check comes in this month. Unmet revenue budget is $2,000 for sponsorship and $2,000 for events for the COTC, hopefully, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. Expenses are under budget, but anticipate paying $2,000 lobbying fee to Recycle Colorado for the second quarter. All is looking good, and feel free to email Julie with any questions at info@elementscompost.com. So that's that. All there for you to read. I didn't probably need to read it out loud, but I did anyway. So anyone have any financial questions that those of us that aren't our financial liaison can answer?
I had kind of a related question about the summit, and maybe it's more for Allie if she's still on here. Oh yeah. There's like for people that are having a booth or whatever, there's like a gift, and I wasn't sure what the suggested price point was, or like how many gifts we should have prepared for that. I don't know if that's a surprise or whatever.
No, they're just like prizes for when we do an exhibitor activity. And so we'll be sending attendees to your table if they get like the answer right to the question that you submitted. And so just like something that's either like branded or something as simple as like candy or something like that, just so they remember who you are and you got a little bit of a connection.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, right on. And Allie, that's for the folks that are tabling, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, gotcha. MJ, excellent question. Also, I believe that there are. I don't know how many. I do know that most of the hotels have some that I read. So might want to call ahead on that one.
Okay. I do not believe there are EV chargers at the convention itself, but there are multiple EV chargers within walking distance of the convention center.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Okay, let's see, where did this leave us? Rachel's going to provide us a little bit of a state policy report, if you wouldn't mind. Feel free to keep it brief since we've got time.
Sandy's asking me to stop talking. I got it. Now I put together these notes, and forgive typos because I literally put them together like half an hour ago. I put the link in the chat. The COCC has been following a number of organics related bills. All of the ones that are in this doc are ones that either the governor has signed or they are on their way to the governor. The first three that are on the doc are ones that could directly impact the attractiveness of using compost. So they're very cool. The first one, they're cool and they're also really nerdy. Thank you, Clinton, for really digging into this first one and helping us understand it. It's about updating the tax code so that wholesale sales of agricultural compounds, that definition now includes compost and mulch and some other items, and not just fertilizers and synthetic additives. So what that does is it will remove the sales and use tax from that. So that's a great opportunity for COCC to create some educational resources around that so that composters can educate folks who might want to be buying their compost, and so that we can educate the ag community about that. So I put in here that EcoCycles Rutger testified on that. Sorry if I missed anyone else. I was doing this both for my EcoCycle hat and the COCC. So the next one is even nerdier. It's the fund that we got to vote on as in our ballots a couple of years ago, that directs net sports betting proceeds to a fund. A small portion of, or a portion of that fund goes to projects that could help implement the Colorado Water Fund. And those, the way I read it, those projects could include the application of compost, because that would help to make soil more resilient to flood and drought. And so what this does is it closes a loophole where those sports betting companies were able to retain some of the money that they were claiming for free bets, basically marketing that they were doing. So now there'll be more money going into that fund. Not a huge fund, but it's good to know of. And hopefully we can all help leverage that towards good projects. This best value design build is even more adjacent to compost, but what it does is that it allows for the state to, when they're looking at bids on projects, it allows them to look at best value, not just at lowest cost of the items that are in a bid. So specifically, it allows for longer term benefits, such as environmental impacts of projects. So I'm hoping that that can be used as a way to engage with CDOT and other state entities to talk about the value of compost in the long term. It might be more expensive than, say, fill dirt in a project, but it has a longer term benefit. So that's an opportunity, again, for COCC to engage in education. There is a compost adjacent bill that we did weigh in. We, COCC, weighed in on, tried to get the sponsors to look at including compost use, asking municipalities, sorry, the bill, what it does is it is requiring municipalities to update code to look at ways to remove or restrict non-functional turf. And there's a lot of details in there, but we tried to ask them, hey, can you include some requirements around, while you're updating code, updating usage of compost in landscaping. The sponsors, apparently, I wasn't with them, but again, Clinton, I think, was the one that talked to them. Apparently, we're very friendly and amenable to talking about compost in the future, but did not feel like it fit within the scope of that bill. It may be a better approach not to go for a state bill on that topic, but to maybe work with local municipalities, because this is the type of thing that's being seen by a lot of communities as an unfunded mandate. and an overreach of the states. But it's a great opportunity for us, again, to get out there and educate about compost and ordinances like what Denver Water has and what the city of Fort Collins have that require compost in new landscaping. So there were 2 food donation bills that have been signed by the governor already. The first one was created by the Colorado Youth Advisory Council, which is a group of students, of high schoolers that meet, talk about policy and come up with ideas, and then they present them to the legislature. And legislators often pick up a few of those bills and run them. It's a well-intentioned bill. It allows for schools to be able to create share tables, which means that they can share the food. It has to be prepackaged or whole fruit, prepackaged, supplied by the school, not something you've brought from home because they're worried about allergens. So it's very limited in scope of what food can be shared. It's also very limited because schools would really need a lot of funding to be able to have these share tables, but it opens up the conversation. So, it's not a bad bill, but maybe not the most effective. More exciting on the food donation front is 251166. I haven't been telling you any of the bill numbers, but they're in the doc. So this one clarifies the safety dates on, when we see Best Buy, Sell By, those kinds of dates. It aligns us with the law that California passed in September, which was the first in the nation type of bill. And it expands the Good Samaritan protections that Colorado already has that align with the US protections. So it expands that to some additional groups. So it's a great step forward for food donation. I see Naomi's little exclamation point. The food rescue groups that you heard from earlier, we the group of us worked with one of the representatives that sponsored that. And then the last thing on this list is, as you see, not a bill, but it's still important in the legislative, in the realm of state rules. CDPHE's air quality control group is doing a landfill methane rulemaking. That's happening right now. I believe it's supposed to be finalized this fall. If I'm wrong, please someone put that in the chat. They are looking at tightening up regulations around both monitoring and mitigation of methane emissions from landfills. And COCC and a number of the folks weighing in on the bill, we agree that the best way to reduce methane from landfills is, of course, to get the organics out of the methanes, out of the landfills to begin with, to really increase that diversion through composting and mulching projects. And that as the rulemaking proceeds, we need to ensure that particularly small and rural landfills have the support and the funds to improve their existing operations or to increase their composting and mulching operations, possibly through C3 funds or other funds. That's your sort of past wrap up, and I will put in one more plug for not just the summit, but the policy retreat, which is the first day of the summit. Number of folks that had volunteered from COCC met on Monday to kind of come up with a game plan. At the policy retreat, there'll be even better review from our Recycle Colorado lobbyist of what happened in this last legislative session, hopefully a little forecasting of what we'll be able to see next year. And then just some background on what policy work is through COCC and Recycle Colorado. And then we will break up into various different tables to talk about different topics. Organics diversion is one of them, with some great ideas for going forward. We'll say batteries. We passed batteries. We're expecting the governor to sign that, we being Recycle Colorado and our coalition. And we will have a batteries table. So some of us on this call, I know, will be on that table talking about what our next steps are there. And we are also talking about, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a total blank. Liz, can you? There'll be 5 tables, organics, batteries, deposit return system, I think. Oh my gosh, Megan's coming on.
Construction and demolition, right?
And a wild card table.
A wild card.
So if you're feeling wild and don't want to talk organics, you can go there. I think that's it. I'm happy to take questions, but also wanted to keep it brief.
Yeah. So completely comprehensive. And I just want to share with everyone how fortunate we have to have Rachel on our team doing this, because it's been, we haven't had a real direct bridge to state policy since Dan left our team. So it's really awesome. And we just want to thank Rachel and ask for any questions. So we have a lot more policy stuff to get to, but if anybody has anything burning, throw up a hand and we'll get to it. So great. Thanks again, Rachel. That was super helpful. And I linked your document into our notes too, so we can look at it later as well. Next on the agenda then is to talk more on the national level around United States Composting Council and Compost Research and Education Foundation updates, starting with policy. Megan and Sean and myself manage a couple of the different groups at the USCC level, which are the Legislative Environmental Affairs Committee that I sit on, and I'm a voting member of with the USCC, and then the newer State Legislative Committee that helps to try to wrangle all the state level bills that are coming up, to wrangle them up to the USCC level for consideration and voting of support. So Megan has kindly offered to give a quick update on the State Legislative Committee before I get to my LEAC report. So.
Yep, awesome. Thank you. So yeah, real quick, there wasn't really, so the State Legislative Committee is kind of like a subcommittee that just kind of talks about potential bills that are introduced across the country, and helps USCC decide if they're going to try to support, oppose, do nothing, just watch it, whatnot. So they're tracking all kinds of bills all across the country. So in the last meeting, and this is also monthly, the last meeting didn't really pertain to anything specific to Colorado. I think there's a lot of conversation on Iowa and the fact that their compost rules they were last updated in 1996, but that feels very familiar because I think we face similar challenges too. And can you consider compost a fertilizer or not? And a lot of debate and legalese around that. So then I do think it was important. They mentioned there's a big conversation on maintaining the positive image of compost and the need for clear standards and just clear stuff. So I think, we would all agree, keeping compost positive. There is some negative news, that we've seen, like PFAS and things that really scare people away. And we obviously want to maintain a very positive view on finished compost, encourage the use of compost across all the lands. And so then obviously there was then conversation about contamination. And so yeah, nothing in terms of legislative that really impact us with the group, but those were the conversations in the last meeting.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Yeah, there's a lot going on a lot of different levels for sure. So super helpful to hear that. So I'm going to give hopefully a brief LEAC report. Again, LEAC stands for Legislative and Environmental Affairs Committee, and that's one of the committees of the United States Composting Council. And really, because most action is happening on the state level during this closed federal atmosphere, that the USCC is kind of not only really working hard at the state level through the State Legislative Committee groups, but also monitoring and engaging on the state level composting legislation as much as possible. And as Megan mentioned, there's not a ton, that to report back from Colorado, other than that we heard from Rachel already. But there are some good things happening in Florida and some bad things happening in Texas, and really confusing things with EPR packaging and labeling in California, which is kind of an always thing, it seems like. So they're really just trying to monitor and engage state level right now. Because they're hearing from their lobbyists, the USCC, is that there's really limited stakeholder engagement available from federal agencies right now, which is not surprising, I guess. But the EPA is restricting in-person meetings. But the USCC delegation actually visited the Hill anyway, and were pretty well met by staffers in a lot of the different offices that they've visited. So they're still trying, even though they're seeing a lot of closed doors, unfortunately. Megan brought up PFAS also, and honestly, it's kind of like the Wild West of PFAS out there right now in a lot of states. There's 29 different states considering legislation. And in the absence of true federal guidance to really what what's happening is there's a lot of flaws in the EPA's risk assessment that are causing unsubstantiated public concern and fear instead of promoting practical solutions through reality and science. So the USCC is supporting, and the industry is emphasizing science-based approaches to regulation around PFAS. And through the USCC's Compost Action Center, they're asking for comments comments for the EPA's risk assessment. So we encourage I think that went out in one of our newsletters a while back too, and we might push it out again. But definitely, the Wild West of PFAS is like I like to call it. They are actually having an update, a webinar. Bye, Peter. Thank you. There's going to be a webinar on May 29th, all about the current state of PFAS through the USCC. If you're a member, it's free. I think it's $25 if you're not. But please consider attending. That's going to be the very latest that there is on the national level about the PFAS question and all the craziness that's happening in some of these kind of just fearful and misunderstood bills that are starting to pop up around at the states. Really, this USCC thinks the best idea is to ban them on the computer side, on the consumer side. Because as we all know, compost manufacturers are passive receivers to PFAS. So they just need to get stopped upstream. They're also watching the advancement of EPR bills and pushing for composting representation in them across the country. One of the cool things, well, all of the cool things, or one I think is one of the cooler things that they work on is trying to change the North American Industry Classification System, or the NAICS classification for compost, to get it out of the fertilizer category and putting it into a bio-based manufacturing category. And that's something that's still being worked on the national level at the USCC as well. They're also looking into inconsistent soil amendment regulations. Compost is more strictly regulated. Agriculture regulations differ from environmental regulations, and they're putting together a webinar and model policy around creating awareness and to level the playing field for compost. Let's see. They did actually provide some comments to that federal food date labeling bill as well. That hopefully will less confuse a lot of us about what we can and cannot eat and when. They also, too, are continuing to take on compost claims that address the concerns over those countertop device manufacturers that say that they're, kitchen composters when they're really just like food dehydrators. So they're still working along those lines to address those concerns. And then finally, another interesting bit of information is almost former executive director of the USCC, Frank Franciosi, has been collaborating with the Canadian Composting Council that is leading an international effort to create compostable produce labels, which is a big deal across the world too. So there's still work happening along those lines as well. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what LEAC's up to at the USCC level. I know that was a bit fast and a lot. So I can take questions if you want, or we can just roll ahead. We've got another half hour. So how are we all feeling? Any questions, things we want to talk about before we move on? All right. Tom gave us some applause there. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. We are blazing through it now. Let me see. Where does that leave us? Oh, yes. So there are a bunch of other committees through the USCC that Clinton and Megan and Corianne, who I don't think is on this call, Megan Jorgensen is on too, that we can get updates on if there are any. If there aren't, we don't need them. If there are some, maybe Megan or Clinton can raise their hand and let us know what's up.
Hand up.
Hand up. See it. I see it.
I just wanted to reinforce first was the webinar that you spoke of, Sandy, and I put the link in the chat there for everybody. So that's the PFAS and the compost industry webinar, which is going to have Senator Jeff Wilson from Washington there, our very own Jessica Anderson from A1 Organics, Dr. Yong Zhang from Pooter University, and then Linda Norris Walt from the executive director for the USCC. And then Noel Lyons, who's from McGill Composting, which is also a veteran in the industry, 25 plus years, will be moderating that webinar. So highly recommend you get on that one. It's going to be a fantastic webinar. From the MDC side of the world, so guys, I co-chair the MDC Marketing Development Committee for the USCC. The biggest announcement I would put out there, if you are an STA certified compost manufacturer or using the STA certified program, just recently the USA or the USCC launched the new gateway system, and a lot of the due diligence is now done through the gateway system. And also, if you want to source your compost technical data sheets, those would be coming through that platform. And all the new marketing material that comes from the MDC is through that platform. So if you are an STA certified participant, there's a lot of resources there. And if you're not, and you're a compost manufacturer, please reach out to me and I can tell you all about why you should be an STA certified compost manufacturer. The only other thing I had was, let me double check. I tried to open these all for you, Sandy, so that I would do well. The Marketing Development Committee has expanded into 5 different subcommittees, and we just added another 10 people to this national group. And we're specifically focused on not only STA certified compost program, but also 5 specific end market development committees. And that is top dressing, Department of Transportation, homeowners, landscape architects, and agriculture. So if you ever have interest in working on developing those end markets, please reach out to me because we're doing it at a national level through this group in conjunction with a lot of other people to continue to build those end markets. End markets meaning compost being used in those markets. That's it. That's all I got. I'm out.
Cool. Thanks, Clinton. I assume that all those new committees are listed on the USCC website.
They are not committees. They are subcommittees.
Or subcommittees, sorry.
Under
they're
the
listed
marketing
on
development.
theirs. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of great industry people from across the country working on this.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. And Megan, you mentioned that there are no updates for Target Organics at the moment. Okay, cool. I noticed that Franny jumped in to say that she's here on behalf of Corianne, and I think that Corianne's still the professional development representative. And if there's anything to report from that end, that's great. If not, feel free to have Corianne, reach out if there's anything to share. Or Franny, do you have anything to share now?
Share, but I'll let her know.
Okay,
sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and Megan Jorgensen not here. It looks like, or is she here? Or did you put that in there, Megan?
Yeah, I just got a short update for her, so I just added it, but nothing too major.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Thanks. So moving right along then to the Compost Operations Training Course, otherwise known as the COTC. Jamie and Sean have been talking about that because there was actually a slot that opened up for late September, early October. And Jamie, would you like to share what you know about that, if anything, at this point?
Sure. So basically, they said we have a slot and we are offering this to multiple states. So the first state to get back to us with a confirmed location will get this slot. So I have been reaching out to different places. I believe I've reached out to at least one of you guys on here about where we can hold it, because there are very specific needs to host the COCC or the COTC. And so we're also talking to places that we've hosted it before, like CSU Fort Collins, but they are not jumping on it like we thought they would. So that's why we're reaching out to other people. So if anyone on here has interest in hosting or want to know what the requirements are, just let me know. I can send you the sheet that includes everything. You do get paid as a host, so you do get some compensation. It is a week long, 5 days, and then there are some other stipulations. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. We would love to get this slot in Colorado. So thanks.
Hey, Jamie, if it's okay if we interject.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about it. And we are definitely very interested. We just need to kind of work out a couple more details before we can officially say yes. But yeah, we are definitely pretty interested.
That would be awesome. And just so you all know, Food with Power is in Colorado Springs and they're a nonprofit. So it would be really cool if you guys could host it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so cool. That's great. It's pretty amazing that, we obviously hosted one last year, and being able to do 2 years back to back is kind of a coup for our small little chapter. So great work, y'all, and thanks to everybody that's trying to put that together. I really would like to attend personally. So I think hopefully this gets put together, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to make that happen. So
And I really like that Colorado Springs is in a new region for this because we've done Fort Collins, we've done the Western Slope. So if we get Southern Front Range, I think that would be a great location for our next one.
yeah, great point for sure. All right, well, we'll keep working on that. So then next on our agenda is the quarterly USCC chapter meeting that Jamie and I attend. I can just give a brief update on that. So there's not too much to share. Basically, the topic of the first quarter meeting was having successful educational and networking events, shared some information about the USCC chapters playbook, professional development information, and then just sharing all the resources from this USCC side about how we can, in fact, collaborate with CREF for success with our COTCs, which we have to do anyway, which is good, but also just how to hold intentional and purpose-driven events. So I'm wondering, actually, come to think of it, if there's information in perhaps the chapter's playbook or the professional development links that I have in there that might be helpful in Christine and Veronica's work in creating intentional and purpose-driven membership events. So might be a good resource for you both too to take a look at that. And Jamie and I, of course, continue to represent as the COCC co-chairs at the USCC level, and we'll maintain our good standing membership with them too, and do all the requirements and documentation for that. So any questions there? Okay. So here we are at the tail end-ish of the International Compost Awareness Week. Does anybody want to share some stories about what they did or what happened, or any excitement around iCall this year for anyone?
I'll do it.
I knew you would.
So I didn't want to talk. I was just going to let someone else talk. I'm like, is someone else going to say something? No, I had two great opportunities, and then I got to go. And Liz, can you talk EPR? Thank you so much. And then anybody here from Improving Circularity of Compostables that could speak to that real quick? I can't remember. Megan, or no, Sandy, you could. Awesome. So one, we did the Greeley Water Festival, Weld County Water Festival. So I got to speak to almost, gosh, it was close to, man, it was 1,200 kids there, but I got to talk to about 150 of them, all about organic matter and water retention and using compost, which was a lot of fun. And it's amazing what kids will ask. And then also I got to go present at a couple elementary schools, again, around compost use. And there was a 7-year-old that was in front of me as I was doing a demonstration that I'm not going to tell you because I might do it at Recycle Colorado, but looked at me and he's like, oh, that's hydrophobic. 7-year-old looked at me and looked at soil and said, hey, that's hydrophobic. And hydrophobic means it won't retain water, it bounces off water, or water bounces off soil. So I just think it's incredible. We have a lot of amazing kids out there in the state, and they're learning about soil, which is awesome. So it was a good time. Everybody take care. I have to go.
Thanks very much for everything, Clinton. That was a nice report too. So
yeah.
Thanks for being here and for all you do for the COCC and for composting in Colorado. All right, anybody else want to share any iCal stories?
Just want to say I'm super grateful for the resources for social media that was provided this year through ICA and what was the other organization that helped with that? ILSR. We did use their social media post packets of like the different important reasons to compost and shared that widely. So shout out to them for putting those together.
Totally. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, moving along to coalition updates. These are another bunch of organizations that we're basically involved in on some level. Sometimes there's things happening, sometimes not. So if folk could just read those. I know Sean might be driving, so maybe she shouldn't read them. But I don't know if Jess is with us today about the Healthy Soils Initiative. Is there anybody here? Oh, there you are, Jess. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Do you have
sorry.
anything to share about the Healthy Soils Initiative?
No, they're proceeding as normal. They're probably looking to next round with policy to go ahead and put forth a little bit more of like some amendments towards verbiage and definitions.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Jess. Megan, anything from RCAB to share, or anything you want to share about the composting facility in Boulder County? Feel free to say no if you don't want to, too. So,
No updates from RCAB, and I don't think there's any significant updates from Boulder County either. And if there are, we have a project website and an email list, and we keep that pretty up to date when we hit milestones, but we're just yeah, just
Great.
still moving, but yeah, no updates.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Good Business Colorado. Brian, anything to share? Is Brian still with us? Maybe. Quite all right. Like I said, sometimes we have updates, sometimes we don't. Jamie, anything from the ILSR CCC?
Yeah, there's a what do you call it? A webinar. There's a webinar coming up on June 11th, and they're calling it the Community Composter oh my God, I can't say that word. Liaison. No.
That works.
Okay. Program. So if anyone's interested in hearing about like what they're doing and how they might be able to help you as a community composter, that's going to be on June 11th. And if you need that, if you can't find it, you can email me.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna skip the next couple because Clinton had to bolt. But Jamie and I, and maybe Evan even could speak a little bit to the Improving the Circularity of Compostable and Compost Strategic Planning Project, which has now basically been rebranded, the IC3, just to make it a little easier and add another acronym to our lives. But this was the strategic planning project that started with a bunch of webinars for a year, and then we all convened in Denver last fall, and then we started taking some of those ideas back out into the world to try to develop, nationwide kind of alignment on different areas of the value chain of composting. So I'm not sure if, Jamie, I don't know if you're involved in any of those groups have been going forward, but Evan and I have been part of, for lack of a better term, is the kind of compost communications group that we've been working on. And actually, I'm going to invite Evan to share some information about that if he's still here and wants to share.
Sure. Let's see.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're, I guess, defining our charter, which is good because it gives everyone a lot of foundation on like what our goals are. And our goal in the communications group is to basically make sure that there's alignment within our industry. I mean, there's so much sort of, I will call it miscommunication within the industry. And it's hard to tackle with different regional definitions and different things that are compostable and different streams and different technologies. So we're just trying to start by getting alignment within the industry itself before we go sort of external. That's kind of our mission, and we're doing that in collaboration with a bunch of other small groups, each having different focuses like truth and labeling, policy, and all sorts of stuff. So that's kind of what we've been up to. And if anyone's interested in communications and definitions and how best to facilitate these kinds of conversations within our industry, please feel free to message me or Sandy, or just reach out here and we'll figure out how to get you in there. We're kind of at a point now where we're trying to get more people to jump in, and the more perspectives, the better. Does that sum it up? I don't know.
Yeah, that's great, Evan. And we're just one kind of small group, one of the 10 groups basically that were identified at this event to try to carry a lot of pieces forward, a lot of projects forward. As I mentioned, it's been rebranded and kind of refreshed to the IC3, and I put the link to the USCC webpage in there because they have kind of it's basically a one-stop shop now on the USCC's website of where all the information is, where we came from, where we're going, where all the resources are, and how to get involved going forward. Because really, it's kind of a self-directed and unfunded project right now, but it is definitely something that that could use more voices and more information and more ideas anytime. So. I think there's probably some other people on this call that were involved in this whole thing too. There's probably more than one. So people know what it's all about. And let us know if you have questions or want more information. So Liz, did I hear that Clinton wants you to do the EPR report for us?
He did, but I see Robbie's got his hand up.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, just to put a plug in, since you mentioned those BPI webinars, it's just another thing that's talking about circularity of compostables is BPI has a composter and municipality committee that meets once a month for community composters and whatnot to kind of, again, talk about a lot of the things that we discuss here, but towards the advancement of using compostables, but talks about legislation and grants and opportunities for for composters. So that's another, if you want to tack on another meeting to your monthly agenda, that's a good one.
Yeah. Is there like a website or someplace where people can see more info on that you can drop in the chat?
Yes, I will.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. Liz, you're up.
So the advisory board, in our meeting last week, we finalized a memo that gives conditional approval to the LPMA program plan. LPMA is the lubricant, I always get it, LPMA, Lubricant Products Manufacturers Association, or Lubricant Packaging Manufacturing Association. They deal with things that go into automotive stores like grease and lubricants and windshield fluid. Think, the sort of stuff you buy at AutoZone or O'Reilly's. And all of those packages, although they're made of the same materials that our milk and other soup comes in, because they contain degreasers and more toxic materials, those packages contaminate the regular recycling stream. So there is a separate producer responsibility organization to deal with that. And in Colorado, it's LPMA. They've been running programs in Canada for the same suite of packages. The advisory board gave feedback that we approved the plan, the revised plan that they submitted. However, we had a couple of amendments that we said needed to happen, and we had a few comments that we thought CDPHE should take into account. And I believe the public comment period is open for that. That is not really related to compost per se, because none of those materials are made out of compostable packaging. So it's separate from the whole compost. In terms of the compostables and the regular the larger program that Circular Action Alliance, the other PRO that's been designated, the other producer responsibility organization that has been designated in Colorado, the advisory board last month approved the initial memo. So we had, I think it was 72 comments and 9 amendment requests that the advisory board submitted both to CDPHE and to Circular Action Alliance, saying here are the things that we think you must change. Those are the 9 amendment requests, because we believe, as written, the plan as submitted needed these changes to be in compliance with the law. And then there were 72 comments that were not necessarily places where the plan did not comply with the law, but they were places where the advisory board felt the plan could be improved to meet the intent of the law. And we want Circular Action Alliance to consider those comments as they revise the plan. So that won't be available for public comment until they've had their 60 days. CAA has had their 60 days to submit a response to all of our comments. And then the board will have 30 days to review the revised plan. And then we'll make our final comments like we just did for LPMA. That should all finish in August. And then there will be a public comment period. So if you are interested in all of that, it's kind of a holding pattern for right now. There won't be really new information until the July meetings when we get the revised plan. A number of the comments and amendments were definitely related to compostables and the financing for compost. So I would encourage you to tune in to that July 1, or at least watch the recording, look at the summary. I would also put out there that recently the retail representative, Chris Howes, has stepped down from the advisory board. So they are now looking for a retail representation. Since right now, the only person that really knows compost is Clinton, representing compost processors, this could be an opportunity. If y'all know retail people that deal with compostable packaging, this might strengthen the compost voice on that board. So if you think of any retail representation, I should have pulled that up while I was talking about it. Oh, let's see. I'll bet I have the email right here that got sent out asking for that. That happened right after the last meeting. And so they just opened up a call for that. So they're taking applications now, and here's the page if you are interested in that description. Any questions about the EPR? I know a number of you on the call are with me with the hours long process. So this is old news, but then others among you have jobs to do and can't spend 3 to 4 hours a week in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. It's a lot. EPR rolls on, and that's a lot of information, a lot of sorting out of information too. So, and a slight an announcement. So as you know, or I hope most of you know, I am nearing the end of my time in my role as executive director. I am going to stay involved with Recycle Colorado. I'm going to transition from being the director to being a member. And so you'll see me at various councils. One of the things I am also going to do is the board has elected to keep the board of directors of Recycle Colorado has elected to designate me as the Recycle Colorado representative on the advisory board. So I will continue to serve on the advisory board representing Recycle Colorado. And that will mean that I will be coming to these council meetings so that I can stay informed, and I will share my personal email so people can still talk to me, and I will still be a resource for Recycle Colorado members to share their thoughts about what they think the advisory board should and shouldn't be doing. And however, I am taking a vacation this summer after the summit, so I will miss the June meeting of the advisory board. Or not the June meeting, the July meeting. all right. Well, I'm glad to hear that we'll still have you around in some very important capacities. So thanks for that, Liz, and to the advisory board for keeping you on. So cool. All right. Well, we're running really almost right on schedule, just a tiny bit maybe late than I was anticipating, but I just wanted to quickly run down all the upcoming stuff, all the meetings and events I've tried to make a new list and make it a little bit more broadly, not just what our next meetings are, but there's a link to that PFAS webinar from the USCC on the agenda. We are going to be having our next leadership team meeting at the summit, which is going to be open to anyone. We will have a virtual option. Evan's going to help us set that up. And Liz and Allie will be bringing what's called the OWL to do that. So anyone is welcome to come. It'll be Tuesday, June 3rd at 11:30, a little bit of a different time and day as usual. There is actually, for those that are local or want to be in Boulder on June 25th, there has been some interest in sharing, in having a tour of Western's disposal site. They have one of those Tiger Deepak machines, and if anybody's interested in coming to see it in action, I have been in touch with Kathy Carroll over at Western, and she's organizing that for us. So if anybody wants to come, please email me through that link on the agenda. Oh yeah, great. We have the BPI webinars added in here too, and the monthly community some way ahead of me, Naomi, or whoever's putting those in there. Thank you so much. And then our next quarterly meeting is going to be in August. One thing we didn't talk too much about today is our CSU fellow, because she is actually on vacation after finals, but you will be seeing her around in more of our meetings going forward too. So Danny O'Connor is her name, and she will be at the summit, and she will be joining our meetings going forward. So she will be giving her final report to us at the next quarterly meeting. So much more to come on that. We don't have a ton of time to talk about other agenda items or topics for next time, but just keep those in mind. And then I also really just wanted to put a plea out to the whole group that there's so much good work and so many good brains and good angles and people in this group that could really help the COCC and just the general mission of composting. So if you have interest areas, if you want to join in a larger capacity, form another committee, help Christine and Veronica with their current committee, please do reach out. I mean, we need as much help as we can get. I know everybody's super busy, but it's something that some of us are pretty passionate about. We try to stay engaged, even though we all, of course, have super packed lives. So just please keep in mind, the more volunteerism we can get, the better our group will be, I think. So does anybody have anything else for the good of the order, or are we just going to end exactly on time at 4 o'clock? I don't know how that happened, honestly. Really not sure. All right, seeing some celebrations, some thumbs up. Fantastic. Well, everyone, y'all, thank you all so much for sticking with us for a couple hours and for everything that you're doing out there for composting in Colorado. And let's just keep up the good fight, and we'll see you on the screens or hopefully in person.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sandy.
All right.
Thanks,
Yep.
Sandy.
You bet. Thanks a lot. Bye, all.
Good job, Sandy.
Thanks a bunch.